You know, you're the fourth of a sort of a series of science fiction authors that I've been interviewing.
Yeah,
The first one was Werner Vinge. The second one was Charlie Stross. Third one was Robert J. Sawyer.
yeah,
And
wow.
it's fascinating how each one of you has a different take on what it means to be a science fiction writer. For example, Werner Vinge's take on it was he's trying to make sense of the universe. And hopefully his work would contribute to other people by reading his books also accomplishing that goal, making sense of the universe and where we're heading. Charlie Stross, in terms, however, said that I think his words were um, writing plausible lies about an implausible or improbable situation, and and analyzing the human condition under the microscope of that peculiar situation. Whereas Robert J. Sawyer has more of a philosophical and at the same time entertaining edge. But one thing that connects you all is the fact that all of you almost underplay the importance of futurism. So, in other words,
Hmm.
none of you sees their task as predicting the future, which is fascinating.
Yeah, that is fascinating. I'm not really sure why that is. I guess, we probably, and I shouldn't speak for the other authors, amazing authors, by the way. But uh, I think that it might be that we draw on the people that are really seriously working on futurism, and they inspire us. And personally, I look at my job more as communicating a message through story that they're trying to communicate too, but we're just doing it in a different way. And we're doing it in a way that I think is very entertaining, and also very natural. I think it makes it easier to digest for an audience. When you listen to someone give a lecture, there's a certain segment of the population that's fascinated by that. I am, and I'm sure you are too. And then there's some other people that kind of tune out or might fall asleep. But if you say it in a narrative, Alistair McIntyre said that man is essentially a storytelling animal. That's what we do, and that's how we learn, and that's how we understand things. We're always constructing narratives. So, I'm inspired by the futurists. I think about possible futures. A lot. I've still got there's books still to be written up here. Exciting things I can't wait to write. But for me, it's storytelling and narrative that drives me.
Fantastic. So I think it's about time for us to jump into the meat of the matter here and start
Sure.
talking about something more specific, like your novel, Posthuman.
Okay.
So, uh, what is it about? What is Posthuman about?
Well, from a plot standpoint, this is a book that's set at some point in the future, and it's not a novel that's set post singularity, as some people call it. It's before that, but it is a future that's a lot different. And it was a future back in 2005 when I started writing it. That I didn't think very many people were aware of. And it's exciting to see more and more people become more aware. But it was one that I thought was really compelling. So we have immortality, and we have strong AI, and we have people that have incredible abilities. I mean, the nanobots that they have inside of their bodies aren't just there to to keep them young. They're also there to make their lives very attractive, actually, very, very easy. I mean, you're not cooking things for yourself. You're not wanting an outfit and having to go to the mall. I mean, anything that you want, you can have, which sounds fantastic. You have an onboard mental computer, so there's no mobile phones or laptops or anything like that. Um, but there is a dark side in the novel, and that dark side is that because everybody is connected that way, um, they're also very, very easily monitored, and there's maybe a tension between all of the luxury that they get to live in, but then this lack of privacy that they also have. And there's other issues that come up too, like space. When we talk about, one of the first things people will talk about when they hear about immortality is, but what about overpopulation? So in the book, the protagonist is a terraformer, and they've already terraformed the moon, and they've terraformed Mars. He's working on Venus at the beginning. There there are intelligence upgrades that happen for the population, and in the first act of the book, um, the five main characters that are working as terraformers on Venus, they get disconnected from the internet. They don't get their intelligence upgrade, and when they come back, everybody is dead, gruesomely so. And that's the first act that gets the story going, and they have to figure out what happened. And I won't go any further into that, but there are elements that are interesting. It's only the first act. There's lots more still to come. Plus, a whole sequel as well. So it doesn't end there.
I think that's enough information to sort of pique the interest of our viewers into your book,
Hopefully,
hopefully.
yeah.
Uh, but let me ask you this though. So in a way, this is a kind of an apocalyptic
Mm.
sort of pre-singularity or a soft takeoff singularity kind of a scenario in which four or five people who were away when the upgrades happened to be the only survivors on the face of the earth. So how is that different from, say, the Terminator or the classical Matrix scenarios? And what's different uh, about your book?
Uh, well, I think that I mean I agree that it's it's apocalyptic. At least the first book and the inciting incident is really apocalyptic. But I guess what I'd say is different is just that I think I am looking at different things. I'm all over the place with posthuman and with transhuman because there's there's so many conflicting visions of what the singularity might be like, or the time just before the singularity, or even the time after the singularity. And I think that maybe unlike the Matrix, where it's we really only get one scenario throughout all three of the movies. Um, and the first movie is one of my favorite movies, by the way. I think it's fantastic. But um, with the Terminator, I think that that's pretty close to the case too. I mean, they do, the last movie is set in the future, but really it's telling the same narrative, that there's these Terminators that are battling humanity, and that's it. With mine, I'm exploring a lot of different things. I mean, the the so-called gray goose scenario, and the dangers of AI. The humans, or they're a group called purists in my books, versus post-humans, and even androids, and it's just a uh, it really is. It's almost like a smorgasbord of just about every sort of vision that you've heard about, but worked into a very fast-paced and actually clear narrative. I mean, that sounds like it might be really confusing to examine all of those things, but I like to have arcs and twists and turns. We're dealing with one issue. Maybe we're dealing with AI, we think, and then the next moment we're dealing with, the dangers of nanotechnology, or what does it mean to be human? And after we think we've dealt with all of those issues, then we find out that there's even more. The nature of reality versus virtual reality too. I mean, all of those things are covered.
So I have to admit that I haven't had the chance to read your book yet, but let me ask you this. Robert J. Sawyer, I recently attended an event with him, actually just a couple of days ago here downtown Toronto,
Mm.
and he sort of leveled a criticism against what he called the previous 200 years of science fiction, starting with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein,
Mm.
which basically is always, in his opinion, the vast majority of science fiction has been apocalyptic.
Mm.
And when it comes to singularity or AI related science fiction, we've had three major scenarios. We have the Terminator scenarios, in which the AI wants to exterminate us. We have the Matrix scenario, in which they want to subjugate us or enslave us one way or another. And you have the Borg scenario, in which they want to assimilate us
Mhm.
into the collective. But there is no popular, at least, alternative in a sense of a peaceful coexistence between humans and AIs. And
Mm.
that was the motivation for him to write his trilogy WWW, Wake,
Yes.
Watch, and Wonder, because he thought that that is actually, in his opinion, the most likely case for a number of reasons which he posits throughout his books. And he criticized the sort of fear mongering of the traditional 200 years of science fiction. So, since broadly speaking, your book would fall within that camp,
Sure.
call it the Matrix, Terminator, Borg scenarios, broadly speaking, what would your answer to that criticism be?
Well, you're right that broadly speaking, I do fit into that category, but I also fit into his fourth category as well. Uh, I I'm everywhere in these two books, and so I can't say to him that I disagree. I know what he's talking about. Um, I'm not so sure that. Um, is it fear mongering? I mean, maybe a little bit, but there is a downside to these kinds of technology. Hugo de Garis talks about it, and when I listen to Hugo de Garis, I mean, when you listen to him for a while, when he's talking about the dangers of AI, I just wish I could disagree with him on so many points, but it's hard to. But at the same time, I don't disagree with the more optimistic ideas. I don't disagree with Robert J. Sawyer's, and I don't disagree with Ray Kurzweil's either. I think that it is a double-edged sword. It can go either way, and exploring the dangers is important. And it also just happens to be more entertaining. But you can find ways of exploring the issues that aren't fear mongering too, and that do make you feel a little more comfortable. And you get all of that in posthuman and in transhuman. Just as a side, which I think is when I think about Frankenstein, which is what you mentioned, in some of these science fiction classic science fiction books. When I was at UBC, I got to go see David Suzuki. Needs no introduction, especially in Canada. Probably Canada's national scientist, and he was talking about just the nature of education, and he was talking about how people that are in the arts really need to start getting involved in these important issues about the future, just like the scientists are. But what I found really funny about his talk was that he referenced Frankenstein and 1984, Fahrenheit 451, Brave New World. He referenced all of them, but then didn't seem to realize that those are all books. That's literature. We are engaged in these things and have been engaged in those kind of talks for a long time. So I think it's nothing is nothing's off the table with English. That's why I love literature. And there's a dark side. You should explore that too.